Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you tonight?
Man, I'm great, dude. We got, about 50 hours until the NFL season starts. Man, I can't wait for it to get going.
Yeah, recording this on Tuesday night. We are going to finish up with the NFC West, but before we do that, we are going to make our picks for the Thursday night game. Jimmy, the Dallas Cowboys are facing off against last year's Super Bowl winners, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 8-point favorites. This was 7 when I looked earlier today, so this has moved a lot. Are you on board with that price action?
It would have to get to like 15 before I took the Cowboys. I think the Buccaneers are at least 2 touchdowns better than the Cowboys. I think they may just beat the brakes off of the Cowboys in this football game. I do not think Dallas is ready for what's coming their way. Much like Kansas City needs to come out and reassure everyone how good they are, Tampa Bay needs to come out and remind everybody who the Super Bowl winners were. I think Tampa Bay beats the hell out of the Cowboys.
I have no idea what to think of the Dallas Cowboys because eight points is quite a bit, and that offense is pretty good, so you do open yourself up to a backdoor cover there, but I mostly agree with what you said. The Buccaneers have plenty of defenders to cover all those weapons that Dallas has, and Dallas's defense is not good. Or I should say it wasn't good last year, but even if they're average, that's not going to be good enough to slow down Tom Brady in this Buccaneers offense.
Nope.
Well, that's pretty easy. Let's move on to the NFC West, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
So we begin with the favorites in the division are the San Francisco 49ers. They are plus 200 to win the division. They are plus 650 to win the NFC, and they are plus 1,400 to be the Super Bowl winner. Their over-under stands at 10.5. Jimmy, you've been dying to talk about this San Francisco 49ers team for quite some time. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I'll be hammering the under because I don't see how they win 11 games. I have them firmly at 10. In my opinion, they have a really good football team. If they didn't have to play 4 games against the Rams and the Seahawks, I think they could be really, really good. I think they're the 3rd best team in the division because they may have the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the division. And that matters. I don't care about all the other pieces. When you're getting outplayed at quarterback for all 6 of your division games, I don't know how the hell you're supposed to win the division.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you, Jimmy. I think this. I like the over. I'm not picking them to win the division, but I do like the over, and here is why. They're out of conference, or they're out of division games this year are with the AFC South and the NFC North. That's probably 6-2 at worst. That's a lot of wins right off the bat. Those 8 games, I really like San Francisco over. I still don't know exactly what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. When do you think that ends up? How do you think this plays out, Jimmy?
I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter all year. I'm not going to waver from what I've said about Trey Lance. I think it was a horrible waste of a draft pick. When he's been on the football field and not injured, he looked like he was not ready to play against preseason NFL defenses. I don't know how you put him in the regular season to actually be a starter. Maybe a package here or there for his athleticism. I think they completely whiffed on Trey Lance. I don't know how good Jimmy Garoppolo is because he's never sustained health while being a starter. I think we're going to find out this year because I think if they have any chance of winning football games, they have to stay with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm not as strongly against Trey Lance. I think there's just so many question marks there, and with rookies, who the hell knows? I do know that he's going to start a couple of games this year because Jimmy G's not going to stay healthy. And
that's fair.
That's when we find out what San Francisco's ceiling is. Because if Trey Lance ends up being a good quarterback and is more reliable than Jimmy G, but also brings a running element, that makes them much more likely to be Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, their defense could be statistically absolutely great. They have some really good skill positions. I love Trey Sermon. I think that was their best draft pick. I think Trey Sermon with Raheem Mostert is going to be dynamic. They've got some dynamic playmakers, but I just don't think it matters because I still think they have a question mark at the most important position in professional sports. So I can't take you to succeed over Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, and Kyler Murray. I just can't do it.
Well, that leads us into the Seattle Seahawks, Jimmy, and one Russell Wilson. The Seahawks are plus 275 to win the division. They are plus 1,100 to win the conference. And they are plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. Their over-under has really fluctuated. It was 10.5 at one point. Now you can find it as low as 9 or 9.5. So shop around out there. It seems that it's settled around 9.5, 10. I really like the over on this, Jimmy. What are your thoughts on the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, I'm hammering this over just like you said with the Niners. When they play the two divisions they have to play, the Packers are the only team I really think could beat them. Maybe they slip up on an East Coast game like they do most years. So, like you said with the Niners, I feel like they're going to get a lot of wins in those two other conference games. I think they're going to lose one game in their division, in their conference. I think they'll split with the Rams. I like the Seahawks. They just inked Dwayne Brown. Added, he was looking for a little bit more money. They re-signed him today. He got $2 million more per for this season. Plus, they turned some player incentive stuff into guaranteed money. So Russ has got his left tackle, which is necessary because the offensive line still isn't great. I still love their running game. I still love their skill position players. I still love Russell Wilson. I'll be making all of those bets because I have the Seahawks as a wild card. And if the Seahawks make the playoffs, there's always a chance they could run the table. So I'll be making all of those bets. I think they're all juicy enough with enough value, and we have enough history to know when they get into the playoffs, they have a chance to make a run.
Yeah, and if the Seattle Seahawks are going to make a deep run, it's going to be because Russell Wilson's playing excellent football. He's plus 1,800 to win MVP. I don't like it, but I definitely don't dislike it. I don't think Seattle's going to be quite good enough to get him in that conversation, but if you think this team can win 13, 14 games, those are amazing odds for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I kind of think the MVP window is probably closed for Russ at this point. I don't think they love him as much as they used to. So that is great value. I don't think I would make that bet. I do think Russell Wilson can still play at an MVP caliber level, but I just don't think the voters are going to give him that opportunity.
He'd have to go for like 5,200 yards and 45 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, he can do that.
Yeah, those are big numbers. Those are definitely big numbers. That's what it would take, for sure.
Yeah, but at 18-1, I think he's more likely to do that than 18-1.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I do think one thing with the Seahawks, I think as much as any team in the league, they're going to benefit so much from having their fans back in the stadium. The 12s really do seem to make a difference for their home games, so that should swing a lot of momentum to them during home games.
Yeah, and they have those just a lot of skill players around Russell Wilson with DK Metcalf. You have Tyler Lockett. You had mentioned Chris Carson before. Do all of those guys stay on the field consistently this year for Seattle, Jimmy? Can that happen for them?
It can happen. I don't know if it will. I'm going to say it's going to happen, but I think DK Metcalf is going to be one of the most watched players this year to see what his maturation level is, to see what all he can add to his repertoire as a wide receiver. I still love Tyler Lockett. They've got other speedsters. I think Chris Carson is a top 10 running back in the NFL. The only problem is their offensive line is still average to below average, but I think they will be okay. I'm always excited to watch Seattle football. I think this is the opposite of how I felt about Sean Payton. I think this is the one last great run for the Pete Carroll era. I think you'll see a couple more really successful years in Seattle.
All right, so Tyler Lockett's his over-under is 1,000 yards for the season. That's interesting. And DK Metcalf is at 1,250. You think they can get to those numbers, Jimmy?
I think DK gets to it easily. I think with Lockett, I think that's like we've seen with a lot of wide receivers. I think that's just the health number. That is, you're betting, do you think Tyler Lockett is going to stay healthy? Because
Yeah.
if Tyler Lockett plays 15 of 17 games, he's going to get 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of that number 15. If he plays 15 games, he's getting that. But if he's 12,
Yeah,
that's a tall task.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to a team I know you love in this division, Jimmy. The Los Angeles Rams. They are plus 200 to win the division. They are plus 650 to win the NFC. And they are plus 1,400 to win the Super Bowl. Jimmy, are you picking the Los Angeles Rams to win the NFC West?
Yes.
I am too.
I think the Rams win the NFC West. I think they win the NFC, and I may think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not totally sure yet, but I do think they will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I love the team. It's really funny. Like, there are a lot of people tied to NFL organizations inside the league that believe Matt Stafford in this offense is top 8 quarterback in the league. And then there are a lot of talking heads that don't think Matt Stafford is that much of an upgrade over Jared Goff. I've said this before, I definitely side with the people within the league. I think Matt Stafford is going to have an amazing season. Whatever his MVP numbers are, I'll be betting that. I think Matt Stafford is going to blow up in this offense. I think they are going to be this is going to be a great statistical offense, and they've still got enough pieces on defense to be great. They have probably the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald, and probably the best cover guy in the league in Jalen Ramsey, and a lot of good pieces around them. The schedule is still kind of soft for them. I think the Rams are going to win like 14 to 15 games. I love this team. I can't wait to watch them. I think Bobby Trees may be the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. I'm super excited for this team, man.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about. Matt Stafford does bring another dimension. I have question marks about his leadership capabilities. I'm still taking them over 10.5. I think they're going to win 13, 14 games. I think they win the division. I think there's going to be 3 to 5 weeks where they just steamroll whoever they're playing, where it's just they put up touchdowns on the first 4 drives, and all of a sudden it's midway through the second quarter and you're down 3 scores.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too technical on the West Coast offense here, but I'm going to dive into it a little bit. The Rams were always limited with Jared Goff because his accuracy throwing to all 3 levels was never consistent game to game. In the West Coast offense, for it to be successful, you have to be able to run that levels play where you've got somebody at 5 yards, at 10 yards, and 15 to 20 yards. And Matt Stafford is consistently accurate at all 3 of those levels. And the biggest difference is Matt Stafford appears to have a much better head for the game than Jared Goff. Like, you're not going to be able to trick him defensively, playing in the same division with the Bears and Packers for years, and the Vikings, one of the better defensive divisions in football for most of Stafford's career. He's seen just about anything you're going to throw at him. I think this Rams team is going to be excellent. I think a guy like Aaron Donald may finally be on a team where he's truthfully got a shot to win a Super Bowl, and I think that may just motivate him to be even more dominant if that's possible.
Yeah, that's a scary thought that Aaron Donald's going to get better. I mean, it's just scary to think about.
I do think also on the roster side, I think we've talked about a lot of free agent pickups that we think were smart. If he's able to stay healthy, I think the Desean Jackson addition to this wide receiver core is scary good. Rumors are he's running pretty well. If he's healthy and he's still got some burst and he can still run those seam routes along with Kupp and Robert Woods, I don't know how you really stop this offense. I really just I'm excited to see it.
Desean Jackson's going to miss half the year, so I don't know if he's going to matter. I don't know if he needs to matter.
Very much matter for the games he's in.
I don't know if he's going to need to matter with the amount of receiving talent they have.
That's true too. You're absolutely right, and it does suck that Cam Akers went down, but I've liked Darrell Henderson, and I think Sony Michel's a good addition too. He's one of our Leroy Horde guys. I'll get you 4 yards no matter how many you need. But I think between Michel and Henderson, the running game will be good enough to keep you honest against the play action, and I think Stafford is going to tear apart defenses.
Well, Stafford's over-under sits at 4,550 yards, and I don't know how I feel about that because they may be awfully far ahead in some games and he ends up not throwing a ton, but they may just decide to do nothing but throw the ball.
See, that's what I think. I think this may be this offense, I think, is going to attack until the 2 minute of the fourth quarter of every game. I think Sean McVay is going to want to show you what his offense can look like with this kind of quarterback. And to me, that's an easy bet for him to go over that yard number.
Here's another one I also like. Highest scoring team, the Rams are plus 1,600.
Yeah, that's an easy bet for me. I don't see how they're going to be in the conversation. They should be top 5. And if you're top 5, then you might as well make that bet because you've got a chance to be number 1.
So what I find interesting is that's the same number the Cleveland Browns are sitting at. And all the reasons I like about the Rams for that bet, I don't like about the Browns for that bet because I think the Browns are going to run the ball and they're going to keep that core part of their offensive strategy. And if they're up 2 scores, they're just going to pound it down your throat in the fourth quarter. They're not even going to try to throw the ball because a lot of times they're not going to need to.
Yep, I agree.
But, yeah, like you said, I think the Rams are just going to light it up, and they know that's just big players making big plays is how the Rams are doing it. It's a very LA style, so it should be interesting watching them and how they come together. And really, I just want to see what Matt Stafford does as a leader. He hasn't had to be in that situation where he's had to make big plays in big games. And, that's not something we'll really know that much about until we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Matt Stafford, it wasn't always hell for Matt Stafford in Detroit. He did have years with Calvin Johnson. The Jim Caldwell coaching years weren't super bad, but there was always turmoil. There were always issues. This Rams team is pretty buttoned up. They really felt like they were just a quarterback away. And now they got a guy who has wanted this opportunity. Now he gets to have it. And I agree with you. It'll be fun to see how it looks. Like when he's playing in primetime games that actually matter, when you're coming down the end of the season and you have to have a win, does he come out and lay an egg or does he throw for 450? Like, it's going to be fun to watch. This is probably one of the 2 best divisions in the NFL this year. These games are going to be really fun to watch.
All right, and that brings us to our last team, the Arizona Cardinals, Jimmy. They are plus 600 to win the division, and their over-under sits at 8.5. Do you think this is a make-or-break year for Cliff Kingsbury? Do you think they get to that 8.5 number? This
is so tough for me because they should either win 8 or 9 games. I hate the 8.5. If I could find it at 7.5 or 8, so I could at least push, I would probably bet it. But I would probably have to take the under on this because I just don't know for sure if they can get to 9. They're going to be in some close games. I don't know if it's make or break for Cliff Kingsbury just because of how good the division has been. And there has been some growth in the offense. I do think if there's not less of Kyler Murray just running for his life and throwing up prayer shots to DeAndre Hopkins, I think then there's got to be questions about whether or not this offense is actually working or it's just skilled guys doing skilled things.
Yeah, and when Cliff Kingsbury was hired, there were a lot of question marks around that, but he was brought in to run a very specific style, and they drafted Kyler Murray to run that style. I'm not really all that impressed. he seems to find his way into the top 10 list for quarterbacks, but he's a hell of an athlete. But as Nick Wright pointed out, we're not. It's not the decathlon. This is playing quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. I think this is probably I think they're going to go under this year, and if they end up winning 5 or 6 games, Kingsbury's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's true, and they could very easily fall into that 5 to 6 range. Like, I mean, it wouldn't be a shocker if they did not win a game in the division. Like,
no, I don't think that's. I think they'll be lucky to win 2 games in the division.
Yeah, like if they got swept in the division, it wouldn't be that much of a shocker because the other 3 teams are really good, and it hasn't been very hard to get them off script. Like, Kyler he breaks away from the game plan so easily, and he takes a lot of unnecessary shots where if he just throw the ball away on first down, they'd be okay. But he wants to keep making things happen, and it just hasn't worked out that way. And I love a lot of – they've got pieces that I absolutely love. I actually really like – how I was last year. I love that Chase Edmonds is going to get his chance as the running back 1. I think James Conner will get a lot of goal line work in short yardage situations, which I think is good. Outside of DeAndre Hopkins, they're really limited at wide receiver. They've got some guys that can flash here or there like Andy Isabella, but they don't have any other proven guys at wide receiver. They've got 1 really good defensive lineman, 1 really good linebacker, and a couple pretty good guys in the secondary. I don't know if that's enough to win games in the NFC West. I just don't know. But I agree with you. If they do only win 5 or 6 games, you've got to wonder, do we try to get something a little more traditional? But then if you decide to go to a more traditional coach, then that means you have to cut your losses on Kyler Murray.
No, I think they'd bring somebody in specifically to develop Kyler Murray. I mean, you basically spent 2 top 3 picks on him or whatever, wherever he ended up going, because they cut Josh Allen, who they took in the top 5 the previous year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, Josh Rosen just cannot seem to catch on anywhere, but I don't know how Kyler Murray plays in a more traditional offense.
Oh, I don't think he could. I think they would bring somebody in to specifically run. Greg Roman possibly.
Yeah, to figure. Yeah, that would at least have a chance to work, but it's just, it sucks for him. But at some point, his size is going to be an issue. That's just what it is. Like, it's going to give him limitations, and not just his height, but there's not a lot of body on him either. Like, we watch him get bounced around by defensive linemen and big middle linebackers.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't have that elusiveness that Lamar Jackson does, because Lamar doesn't take a lot of big hits. Kyler Murray takes big hits.
Yep.
And for those of you wondering, Josh Rosen is currently a backup with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
Sure, everybody else was going, oh, yeah, where is Josh Rosen these days? There's a lot of question marks about that defense. I don't think it's going to be a great year for the Cardinals, Jimmy. I think they're going to be that team that really has to face a lot of questions going into next season.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I mean, like I said, they do. They've got some guys, but I just don't know if it's enough. I think they're going to battle to get wins against other mediocre teams. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that's you miss a field goal and you lose to a team you should have beaten, that kind of stuff. But I agree with you. If you win 5 or 6 games, then Kingsbury has to come under scrutiny, because this was supposed to be an explosive offense. They were supposed to do a lot of good things, and it really hasn't happened.
Yeah, they've just sort of been okay.
Yep.
Well, any final thoughts on the NFC West, Jimmy?
No, I do want to say one thing about the Cardinals, because we did just kind of shit on them there for a couple minutes.
Well, I did a lot of shitting on him, so go ahead.
The thing that sucks for them is if you transported them into 3 other divisions in football, they would probably win the division.
I'd have them behind the Titans in the South. They'd probably be favorites in the NFC East.
Yep.
They'd be right there with Minnesota for second in the NFC North.
Like, I mean, every other division, they would be, outside of the AFC North, every other division, they would at least be looked at as the number 2 team, most likely.
Yeah, if you swap them with the Chargers, people would be talking about them like they talk about the Chargers.
Exactly. So that does stink for them, but this division there's going to be a lot of heavyweight fight feel between the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners games. And I feel bad for a lot of fan bases that are going to watch these teams just roll over their teams. Like, I think all 3 of these teams are out to prove a point. I don't think the Niners are going to prove that point very much because of the quarterback situation. I'm gonna stay firm on that. I might be wrong. I don't think I am. But I do think they've got enough talent where they may win games 14-0 where the other team only crosses midfield like 3 times. Like, I think their defense is that good, but I just don't know what they're going to get out the quarterback position. But I think the Rams and Seahawks are 2 of the premier teams in the league. They're going to be fun to watch. There are some huge games. I believe the Rams and the Seahawks, I think, both play the Buccaneers, but I know for sure the Rams play the Buccaneers. And that will be one of the key games in the NFC for the whole year.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch these guys go at it. Well, Jimmy, thank you for joining me on this. What is this, Tuesday? Yeah, it's a Tuesday night.
Yes, sir.
All right, for Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.